Hey guys, how's it going? Today I want to talk about the domain and range of radical functions. And I keep saying radical functions. I realize I'm sorry. I should have clarified that at some point, the difference between a square root and a radical function. So just real quick before we get started, it'll take 2 seconds. This is a square root, right? This has what we call an index of 2. In fact, if you go on your iPhone calculator, there's a little 2 there. There are other root functions. There's cube roots and fourth roots and fifth roots that we'll talk about a little. We might talk about cube roots real quick, just so you guys are familiar with it. But I'm sorry, when I say radical and I say square root, in this case they mean the same thing. Those are interchangeable terms, radical and square root in our case. But just so you guys know, there are other radicals that are not square roots. So I'm sorry, I keep saying radical functions. We're talking specifically about a type of radical function called a square root function. So anyway, I digress. So we also today have to talk about domain and range, okay? Domain and range are pretty much going to tell you what are your possible x values that you can plug in and what are your possible y values that you can get out. Now this is the parent function. We'll go over specific stuff about all these different types of functions next week. I just really want to talk about the domain and range. What you essentially need to know is where does it start? It starts right here, right? The parent function starts at 0, 0. Okay, there's no negative numbers for your x values. So if you kind of look at your x values, nothing, 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 wham, answers, right? So there's an answer for 0 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, 8 and 9. So pretty much all of your x values start at 0, and then it just keeps going, right? You can put in whatever number you want, just keeps going and going and going and going. Your y value is the same thing. We have no y values, nothing for -7, nothing, 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 nothing. And again, all of a sudden at 0, 0, I start having y values, right? I have y values, I have y values, I have y values, right? There's answers for that. So essentially when we talk about domain and range, we just want to know, hey, what can we put in, right? In this case, only numbers from 0 and up. And what could come out? Well, in this case, nothing but numbers from 0 and up, right? And the thing to keep in mind is, well, it is growing much faster in the x direction. It does keep going up in the y direction. And it looks like it flattens out, but it does continue to go up and up and up. It's just going, see if we kind of see it will kind of separate it. It is going up. It's very hard to see. It's not a flat line. It is very slowly creeping up. But it's just growing much faster in the x direction. So bare minimum for us, what we want to know is kind of what is the domain and what is the range. Okay, so the domain refers to the x values, the range refers to the y values. So for this function, okay, if they said what is the domain, well, we said again that it starts at 0, 0, right? That essentially everything bigger than 0 is okay to plug in. So we say our domain is the set of x. So before we even get into the rest of the nonsense, you want an easy way to do things. It's a way to tell these are going to give you multiple choice problems. Okay, you can start right there. If you're looking for the domain, it's got to be x. If you're looking for the range, they gave you y, but it could also be f of x. Okay. So in this case, what is your domain? Your domain is anything from 0 and on up, right? So your domain is a set of x, and what do we want to know? X has got to be greater than or equal to 0, right? Any number greater than or equal to 0, right? And your y values in this case would be the same thing. All your y values that have to be greater than or equal to 0. Now, I prefer it was kind of in full set builder notation, but we'll go with this for now, and we'll kind of get to some more advanced stuff. So let's see what happens when we start changing these things a little bit. What if I add, well, you guys know as well as I do, if I add 9 on the inside and I subtract 5 on the outside, it moves 9 to the left and 5 down. So now all of a sudden this changed. Where does it start now? It starts from -9, -5. So again, if we're talking about this, your domain and range, they both start from different points. They start from -9 and -5. But again, it's still everything bigger than that in the x direction and everything bigger than that in the y direction. So we would say our domain, again, the set of x, start right there. Well, all the x's have to be bigger than -9, right? Or equal to. -9 is okay. So what will we say? X has got to be greater than or equal to -9. And your range, again, starts at -5 this time, right? And then it goes up from there. So we would say the set of y such that y has got to be greater than or equal to -5, okay? So for us, I mean, the big part, that's terrible. The biggest thing you need to figure out is, hey, where's this endpoint? Like, where is this part where it stops? Because it goes on forever in the x direction, the y direction. What if we went ahead and we said, I don't know, I want this. Okay, so it's over here, don't worry, it's still here, okay. Again, so it's flipped upside down, but where does it start? It starts from 5, 3. So we're starting from 5, 3. Now, we need to be a little bit careful with this one, though, because if we take a look, yes, my x values are going up, right? Anything bigger than 5 is good, right? But now we need to take a look, though. Yes, from 5 on up is good for my x values, but if we take a look, my y values are actually going down, right? So my x values are going up, but my y values are going down. So your domain, your x values, right? Your set of x, such that, right? So that doesn't change. X has to be greater than or equal to 5. But the key thing here is that your y values aren't going up. They're actually going down. So it's actually any number less than 3. It's less than 3. So all we need to do is kind of flip that sign around and say, hey, the set of y such that y is less than or equal to 3. Okay? Good. So just watch kind of which way it's going. So these numbers are not going to change. The 5 and the 3 don't change. What changes is which way this is going. So x is going up, but y is going down. So it's going to be less than. Well, it's going to be less than 3. Okay. Again, we can switch around the other way too. What if I'll keep the same numbers there, and what if I just throw a negative sign in there? Now all of a sudden, oh, I'm way back here now. What happens when I get a -5, -3? But in fact, that is, they're both going up to that point. So this point is where it ends, but that's the biggest it can be in the x direction and in the y direction. So again, start by identifying your endpoint as -5, 3, right? So again, what's going to happen though for your domain and your range, x and y. Okay, so start with that, I guess. And we'll say, hey, all the x values have to be less than -5, right? So x has to be less than or equal to -5, okay? And the y values have to also be less than or equal to 3. Okay? So again, just watch which way the graph is facing. You guys should be able to take it from there. If you get your less than and greater than signs mixed up, it's all right. Let me know. I'll see if I think I have some notes on this. I'll post with today's video. They should kind of help with those symbols. But again, let me know if you guys have questions. I'll gladly answer them. This should be a review of domain and range just specifically for the types of functions we're reviewing now. So I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will talk to you on Monday.